Okay, so I've been speaking about Neptune recently and sort of the overlap between Neptune's significations and those of Dionysus in the practical astrological sense, how these two archetypes have a very large overlap. And now I'm going to talk a bit about Pluto and or Hades and what that signifies in a very traditional sense, that of the Bacchic fertility cult mindset, which was very much alive and well amongst the Gnostics, who were contemporaneous with the early Christians and most likely um, had been around for quite a long time. The Gnostics were nothing new. They had basically um, slightly altered a lot of the most basic cosmological ideas of these fertility cults, and they took them in a very specific direction. So, what does this have to do with Pluto? So, um, if we think about creation as being um, all about light, light is basically trapped in solid material things. We look at the tree as a sacred being because of its capacity to capture sunlight and then turn it into energy and life. Um, we need to think about Pluto, Hades, being the manifestation, the embodiment, mythic, archetypal embodiment of light being captured into a material body. And Pluto being like the farthest from light, where it's most solid and most trapped, essentially, in this in embodiment. So if we take that as our basic um, metaphor for what Pluto slash Hades is, we need to understand that in the traditional mindset, especially the Gnostic mindset, the further you get away from pure light, pure energy, the more corrupt things are. Now that's in many ways a problematic idea. The idea that it's corrupt because it's in embodied in form. But there is a lot of truth to this metaphorically, because when we look at man-made structures, man-made ideas, our idea of what the world is, it will never have the telos of nature. Our ideas and our structures, our legal frameworks, our societies, anything that's constructed by man cannot equal what is simply a product of nature, God's creation, essentially. The goddess herself is also something we need to understand. This is the goddess herself incarnate. And this is where we get the idea that the feminine is corrupt, that the feminine is dark, that it is essentially the farthest away from the masculine light. And when we get moralistic about this, it becomes increasingly problematic when we see this in a hard dualism of as good and bad. And this is what the Gnostics were really saying, that anything that's in a body is corrupt, and we need to it's all just illusion. We can't replicate God's creation, so what we need to do is escape. spiritually escape from here. But the Gnostics also had a very solid basis in the fertility cults. And I'm going to read something that came from the Dead Sea Scrolls and Christian Myth by John Allegro. And this actually comes from the Unslaved website. I don't have this book. I have several others of Allegro, but I just happened to see it and I wanted to share this. So this is not for the those who want to hold on to sacrosanct ideas about what early Christianity was and its actual origins, or those who want to see Gnosticism as being something other than what it is. So if you have those ideas, you might want to stop watching now. So the quote is, "Whatever the psychological basis for the Gnostics' denigratory attitudes to sex and marriage, they rationalize their opposition in terms of discouraging the continued generation of life and the imprisonment of light in corrupt matter. Light was, of course, a spiritual force, but it was concentrated in the substances responsible for procreation, semen and menstrual blood. These were therefore regarded as imbued with special power and played an important part in the Gnostics' rituals." So the Gnostics would actually capture the menses and the semen and consume them, as these were considered to be the flesh of the god, which had an incredible amount of provenance already. This idea was ancient. The cults of Bacchus, Dionysus, these goddess cults, already held this idea. So they were, the Gnostics basically were putting a bit of an ascetic lens onto the Dionysian slash Bacchic ideas of what the seminal fluids, the fluids of sex, really meant. So when we get into Pluto, this is a different and perhaps a more direct way of understanding what a chthonic god is, a god of the earth, of fertility, of this, basically the idea that the life force is trapped in this, in an embodied place, and that Pluto is, in many ways, this Hades character is sort of the embodiment of this idea, and this is where we get corruption. As I said, this is Pluto can be thought to represent any kind of human construct that's in this dark place of it doesn't have this telos, it doesn't have the life force in it. It's a representation of something that is created by the creator in its most pure sense, and it is necessarily corrupt and cannot be true to nature in this way of thinking. Now, if we take this basic truth and we understand that all we can do is to observe nature and attempt to replicate her laws and constantly be on a quest to further understand and embody those laws as we see them, we have a this is all humanity can do, basically, to try and live in accordance with the laws of nature. So this Gnostic way of thinking has a origins that are even more kind of strange and unnatural in a way. The Bacchic cults had long believed that the creator god was some sort of sacred androgyne, like this primordial atom, a hermaphroditic god that hatched from an egg. We're talking about Phanes or Protagonus. Um, Ericapius is another epithet for this. So we can, this tells me that people were either holding on to some kind of scientific, truly ancient scientific wisdom about humanity's origins, or they were perhaps getting information from taking a lot of entheogens, essentially taking a lot of drugs, and drugs like ayahuasca or its correlates, and there are many ways you can make an ayahuasca-like substance from herbs that exist in Europe, in the Middle East specifically. And we also know that they would add ancient fertility cults would create these psychotropic substances, and they would add things like human fluids to this, and they would also add poisons from snakes. And we see that there are the snake handling charismatic Christian cults still exist, who still hold on to some, a vestige of this, the snake oriented religion. This is extremely old. I mean, probably one of the oldest religious traditions that exist. So the link to the snake and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we could see that there's potential, possibility that this tree of knowledge of good and evil was an entheogen, was a metaphor for this these substances, and the link of the snake to the tree guarding this knowledge. Again, that brings us to this a guardian of a mystery tradition. And there's, I mean, I see it as likely that this sort of oracular gaining of knowledge of some kind of human origins, this doesn't surprise, it wouldn't surprise me if people weren't getting this from some sort of entheogenic experience that could be replicated from person to person. There's tests, there's studies out there that have showed that there's a similarity of experience among people who take ayahuasca and other entheogens like that. They often go to the same places, metaphorically, and actually encounter the same beings in this other realm. And often they're snakes that people see when they get past the veil and go into that ayahuasca-induced state. So again, we're back to, this is Pluto is this, in many ways, this In astrology, people will talk about Pluto as being a force that can find things that are valuable that others overlook, like from mining or from finding things underground, things that you can find that are hidden to other people. So when we get that underground, we get the idea of underground caves. That actually brings us to the womb within the human female, which is actually where many of these ancient um, practices they would use the human womb to put substances, and those substances would undergo the an alteration through the processes, the generative processes of the womb, and they would become cooked essentially in there to then be used in sacred rites. So this brings a whole different level of metaphorical ideas to the idea of Pluto, Hades. When you think about this level of mystery cult, um, ritualistic understanding, it really opens up what Pluto slash Hades is. So again, there's the aspects of humanity that human ideas, human constructs can't equal those of nature. And when we hang on to those constructs and we become dogmatic and we don't see that we do need to revisit them, we do need to review them, we need to not stop having laws, not stop making constructs, not aspiring to civilization, but also understanding that all of it is in a way flawed. That's one level, and you get the idea of Plutonian. Plutonian implies hidden power structures, this kind of subterranean power source, which again I've talked about the tree of life metaphor with astrology that I use. This puts the signs of Capricorn and Aquarius are Saturn ruled, and Saturn is, according to the Orphic hymns, he is the great root fire. He is that which protects the root, but he does it by actually driving the life force underground and eating anything that's above ground. So it's Saturn would be worshipped through propitiation and a patropaic means, because he's not going to help you, but he will eat those things that break his laws, that come out of the earth when they should not. Okay, so I hope this is helpful to people. This is far more esoteric than most astrologers would ever want to go with this, but if we want to get to the root, so to speak, of what these archetypes mean, we need to get into the mystery cults, because these mystery cults we need to understand what they were thinking and how this whole thing works metaphorically. If you are interested in booking a reading, you can get in touch with me through my website. It's michaelmsuter.com. I'm also going to be doing, I've been threatening for a long time doing classes. It's hard to find people who are willing to go this deep, but if this is something that's of interest to you, you want to understand the really profound level of what the zodiac and the whole system really means. I have a lot of ideas that are based in, I think, a lot of real historically sound and esoterically sound ideas. You can get my Substack. It is msuter/diamond, DAIMON, seed astrologer.